Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Wednesday, October 11, 2023, we meet today to talk about Link, CHAINLINK's crypto. As usual, we will divide the video into two parts. A fundamental part, we will come back to what CHAINLINK is, its news, and a technical part, we will project ourselves on purchase prices, sales prices in the medium, short and long term. Let's go. What is CHAINLINK? So, CHAINLINK is a protocol that interfaces with blockchains. This is the best way to summarize it. We can say that it is an oracle, but it is not just an oracle. It offers much more than that. He is known mainly for being the best oracle in existence. And what is an oracle? This is something that interfaces blockchains with the real world. The classic example is behind in a smart contract. I define that I want, for example, to let people bet on the rain or the good weather tomorrow. I have to confirm what the weather was like the next day. And that is complicated when you don't have an oracle because mainly the blockchain gravitates within this information which is its own, and behind it does not have access to the internet and to all the other information outside. And precisely the principle of oracle is to provide access to information which is outside the scope of its own blockchain, and it goes even further in the case of CHAINLINK. It is to provide access to information which is almost everywhere, and that this is really the principle of CHAINLINK. It is giving something which is secure, which is by far the most secure and which is flexible to be able to interface with all the other blockchains and with mainly all the information which is stored everywhere, whether in blockchains or it is in the internet, and it is the very principle of the oracle. It is the very principle of CHAINLINK, precisely in the general idea of going even further. It is to give access to information through a protocol which is secure, and a protocol that is easy to use. That is to say that it is behind a blockchain which is made available in which we have access to absolutely everything, and we can then have access to information in a secure manner without having to worry about it. On the structuring of the data, on the way in which it is arranged, is the data good or not? Is it verified or not? And it is very important to have all this information, and the principle of CHAINLINK is to have that. We can clearly see that we have the elements which are outside the blockchain, what we call real-world data. We have CHAINLINK which processes this data, which makes it available to all the different blockchains, and then it can come out in the different meaning or be used. And it's not for nothing that big names like AAAVE, Synthix, or even all the big protocols that we currently see use CHAINLINK because it is one of the most secure oracles currently, and it is important when we create, for example, protocols which are inter-blockchain in which we need to validate whether or not we have a dropout at a specific location, whether it is of a value or something like that to be able to do arbitrage directly, at the level of its own protocol. This is why it is by far the most used. Alongside, they launched the CCIP. CCIP being precisely the notion of interfacing between the public and the blockchain exactly, and it is used in Swift to interface with the different blockchains and the world of traditional finance. In fact, we are talking about the notion of value carried by the banking chain and the value of blockchains in themselves. And that's why it's interesting when we look at this example, that we see clearly that we have financial institutions which will pass directly through the CCIP and therefore CHAINLINK to interface with the different blockchains to be able to make transactions and recover these transactions. The strength of the CCIP goes further. For me, it's really a transfer protocol that will interface between the real-world asset and then globally the rest of the Web3 blockchain world. And CHAINLINK is not just the notion of interfacing. They have cross-chain communication, which is what we have just presented, but also everything that is the execution of functions, the automation of functions, etc. It is important to understand that a smart contract is a piece of code that is inactive until it is activated, and when it is activated, it is through, for example, a transaction or through an action such as an oracle, which will activate a piece of code, and that's interesting to see because it's excessively used in this way. Next to CHAINLINK, it was a gathering which was carried out at the beginning of October, in which we have had relatively little news. We are not going to hide it. We have had news of partnerships which have been carried out, but we will say the big news fell mainly with the CCIP and their will. So on the other hand, they have reaffirmed their desire to be TCP/IP, therefore, which is the Internet Interfacing Protocol currently. When we talk about TCP/IP protocol, it is the structural base which is below all communication at the level of Web 2, therefore at Internet level. And they want to be the equivalent, but at the level of Web 3 and be interested between Web 2 and Web 3. Well, that was applied, but we didn't really have any big news, but that's pretty standard given that we've already seen everything. In terms of the link, we have to be careful because we have a max supply of 1 billion, yes. But above all, we don't yet have total dilution, so we will have a lot of links that will be generated. And we have a diluted market cap, therefore implying a diluted market cap with the whole. From the maximum supply, we would be at 76 billion, so which is already quite significant for link in bear market. So we are already on a project which is very solid, and which already has a market cap which is highly valued. So technically, where are we? Technically, it's interesting because I talked about it in the October top, and I invite you to go watch it. I will put it at the end of this video if you're interested, but we have a setup which is really nice, in which we have a first acceleration, a phase of lateralization, which is given a reaccumulation to then have acceleration. That is to say that we experienced with the top of May 2021. And what is important to see is that we did not do any new ATH on the second part of the bull run, all right? We did first ATH retracement, second here, retest, and then we break. What is that? It's a weekend distribution, in which we have the BC, therefore the buying climax, we retrace, we do the automatic rally, we will retest, we do the secondary test, and there we go to do the sign of weakness, the SOW, to be able to reaccumulate. What do we see here? We see a lateralization equivalent to that which we experienced here, except that it is much longer, and it is not for nothing that sometimes I speak of Link by saying the stable call Link, because that there is a crisis or not, he gets hit, he always remains relatively flat. So everything is relative, obviously, because we go from a top, which is in the $8 to a low, which is in the $4. So we still do Onyx 2 regularly, but that does not prevent us from being relatively flat compared to what we have experienced since here, Terra Luna. We are totally flat. We have not made any lower. We do not have a bearish drift as we can see on Dogecoin. We have something which is relatively solid. That is why it is very interesting to talk about it, especially since we currently had a top performance here. So we went to retest the game. High, so for me we are going to look for at least this area. So in the $5-9 or even break to look for the $4 to go and retest the lower parts. We can clearly see that we still have a small tendency bearish at the low level. So it would be logical to look a little lower, and I have my target here in the 4.45 if we ever make a small extension to fall into the golden zone and then go back up there. In any case, as long as we haven't broken these highs here, so as long as we haven't taken all of this part, we can't go back up there, okay? So it is important to have a structure that is formed, in which we will potentially look for a low, to then make a bullish break. So we will look for all that, then we will do a little retest which will not break the previous ones. Low, and then we will accelerate. And there we will have a signal to say that we are in a phase of rupture of accumulation and we are going to go up there. That is exactly what we saw there. We had the acceleration. Here, first acceleration. We see that we marked the intensity. Well, so we went to retest the lower parts. We did an acceleration again, we retested, we left again. And there we had a really strong acceleration. This is exactly what we want to look for here. As long as we don't have that, it implies that we are in a lateralization zone. If you are interested in exposing yourself, it can be precisely an important element taking into consideration that currently the cost remains a fixed price, whereas we have an emission of Link, which is constant. So that means that we have a dilution of the existing token, and at a given moment when we have a reduction in this dilution, we will have a valuation of the token which will be intrinsic. So in terms of targets, what can we set? So already the classic targets I have just told you the break zone, so at least the $10 to say that we are going to retest and start again on the rise second zone, it will be removing all the people who are blocked with links between $33 and $40. Okay, so all this top, which is very important, in which we had a very strong acceleration of the bull run before the break. We still have a lot of people who are stuck here, so we will certainly have a reduction in exposure and a profit taking from those who have precisely accumulated in this area. Then, can we aim for a new ADH? I want to tell you, technically, yes, we could be in a wave 1, Wave 2, there is perhaps a Wave 3, with the classic 618 objective. For a CHAINLINK in the $90, it remains identical to the analyses that I have already carried out for you. So for me, we have a potential pot. On the other hand, it is imperative that the link has a strong interest at the CHAINLINK level, which is not necessarily the case yet, at least sufficiently for my taste. If we really position ourselves as the TCP/IP of Web3, and we have a link in the link, we could even look for a much higher target without any problem at the link level. I hope you like this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It always makes me very pleasure, and I am sure that you will appreciate the video that I made yesterday on SOL, the Solana crypto, which itself also has a very interesting setup. I will put the link here, and we will see you tomorrow 7 p.m. for the market analysis and daily news.